welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking what is easily one of the most profound allegories in all of ancient Sanskrit literature. We're looking at the story of King Puranjana, which is right there in chapter 27 of the Śrīmad Bhagavatam's 4th canto. You know, if you've ever felt like time is just slipping through your fingers while you're caught up in everyday distractions, well, this ancient text is speaking directly to you. So let's jump right in and decode this incredible 30-verse story step by step to see exactly what it reveals. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be breaking this chapter down into 5 acts. First, the illusion of King Puranjana. Next, family expansion and entanglement. Then, the attack of time, followed by Kalakanya and the curse, and finally, the alliance with fear. Let's get to it. Act 1, the illusion of King Puranjana. Covering the first 3 verses, we are introduced to a king who is just completely intoxicated by youth and the overwhelming beauty of his wife, Queen Puranjani. He is so captivated by her embrace that he literally loses all track of day and night, entirely wrapped up in his material enjoyment. Then, verse 4 hits us with this incredibly striking imagery. Lying on a highly valuable, super luxurious bed, with his head resting on his wife's arms, the king is described as being completely overwhelmed by ignorance, right? He's so comfortable, so deeply embedded in these immediate sensory pleasures that he totally fails to understand his true self, or really anything beyond his immediate physical reality. Basically, his own comfort has entirely blinded him. So who is Puranjana actually? Well, here's our first decoder ring. In verse 5, the text explicitly reveals that Puranjana is an allegorical representation of the living entity, meaning the soul that has become trapped within a temporary material body. And because he's so illusioned by his desires and his entirely material mindset, half of Puranjana's life just vanishes in what feels like a fraction of a second. It's a really powerful reminder of just how fast time moves when we're living purely through our physical senses. Act 2, family expansion and entanglement. As verses 6 through 12 are going to show us, material attachment rarely just stays static. It inevitably multiplies, rooting the soul deeper and deeper into the material world. 1100. Let that number sink in. In verses 6 through 9, we see the sheer volume of his attachments. King Puranjana begets 1,100 sons, and literally half his life passes just doing this. Then he fathers 110 daughters, and of course, it doesn't stop there. All these children marry and produce hundreds of grandsons each, vastly expanding this massive dynasty within his kingdom of Pinkala. The roots of his entanglement are just spreading like wildfire. Now, to support this massive dynasty, verses 10 through 12 detail an inescapable trap of activity. First, for dynasty expansion, he's constantly arranging marriages, which results in these deeply rooted attachments to his home, his treasury, and his wealth. Then, to satisfy endless material desires, he performs animal sacrifices, which the text actually describes as ghastly rituals, or kratubir gorayer. On top of that, through worship, he's constantly appeasing demigods, ancestors, and ghosts. And the ultimate result of all this tireless, non-stop activity? A complete and total loss of spiritual awareness. He is utterly oblivious to the threat that is approaching. Act 3, the attack of time. Here, the tone of the chapter shifts to one of absolute urgency. The narrative pivots away from comfortable domestic life to a sudden, unseen, and totally relentless invasion. Verses 13 through 15 give us this massive aha moment by decoding some truly brilliant metaphors. Chantaviga, a Gandharva king who attacks with 360 soldiers, actually represents the passing year, or time itself. The 360 white and black soldiers, well, those are the days and nights of the year, constantly plundering our lifespan. The city of Puranjana is the human body itself, and Prajagara, the 5-hooded snake fighting them off, is the vital life force, our breath, trying desperately to keep the body alive. Verses 16 through 18 describe what is essentially a 120-year losing battle. Prajagara, that vital breath, bravely defends the city of the body entirely alone for 120 years against these 360 soldiers of time. But what is King Puranjana doing while his own life force is fighting this desperate war? He remains completely distracted. He's just sitting comfortably inside his city, enjoying his kingdom, collecting taxes, being controlled by his wife, and fundamentally failing to realize the imminent, creeping danger of his own mortality. Act 4, Kalakanya and the Curse. Just as the body's defenses are weakening in verses 19 through 22, a new, incredibly destructive character enters the scene to accelerate the fall. We first meet Kalakanya, representing old age. desperately searching the three worlds for a husband. But, as you might guess, she is universally rejected. The text calls her Durbhaga, which means ill-fated, simply because no one in the material world wants to embrace old age. Driven by frustration and desire, she approaches the great celibate sage Narada. And when Narada naturally rejects her, she becomes absolutely furious. She places a terrible curse on the sage, dooming him to wander endlessly without ever being able to stay in one place. This bitterness really sets the stage for her next, much more destructive alliance. Act 5, the alliance with fear. We now reach the climax of the chapter in verses 23 through 30, where the forces of destruction finally unite against the distracted, illusioned living entity. Following her rejection by Narada, Kalakanya desperately seeks a partner. She approaches Yavanasvara, the king of the Yavanas, who represents fear and death, and offers herself as a wife. Yavanasvara just smiles. He acknowledges that she's universally rejected because she's inauspicious. But, you see, he's a master tactician. Instead of taking her as a wife, he adopts Kalakanya, old age, as his sister. He then turns around and introduces her to his brother, Prajavara, who represents severe fever and disease. In the final verses of the chapter, verses 29 and 30, this terrifying coalition is fully formed. We have Yavaneshvar, the unseen force of fear and death. We have Prajavar, the burning force of fever and disease. And we have Kalakanya, the inevitable decay of old age. Together, they're backed by invisible armies. Yavaneshvar tells Kalakanya that united, they will roam the world completely unnoticed. They'll use these invisible soldiers to sweep across the globe, bringing sudden destruction to all living beings who, exactly like King Puranjana, are blinded by material life and completely oblivious to the passing of time. Which leaves us with a final, very striking question. The Śrīmad Bhagavatam isn't just telling us a neat story about a fictional king. It's holding up a mirror to us. Every single day and every single night, those 360 soldiers are at your gates, quietly dismantling your physical city while your life force fights them off. So, what you should really take away from this explainer is a moment of deep reflection. Ask yourself, are you truly awake to the spiritual reality of your time here? Or are you Puranjana, sleeping comfortably in the illusion, just waiting for the invisible armies of old age and fear to arrive? Take a moment to think about that and keep seeking the truth.
According to a 5,000-year-old text, your physical body is currently under a relentless siege by, well, an invisible army of exactly 720 soldiers. And I think the most disturbing part about this is that you are likely completely ignoring them just because you're, too comfortable.
Yeah, it is a really striking and honestly incredibly sobering image to start off with.
Yeah.
Especially when you realize that this army, it isn't some mythological force, right?
Yeah.
It is literally the fundamental nature of reality breaking down our defenses, second by second.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this, because today we're going deep into an ancient Sanskrit text that really diagnoses the human condition with just brutal precision.
Absolutely brutal.
Yeah. So we are looking at a very specific section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter 27. And this is the story of King Puranjana, as narrated by the great sage Narada.
And, on the surface, it really just reads like a fantasy epic. But as anyone familiar with Vedic literature knows, we are actually looking at a brilliant, multi-layered allegory here. It's an allegory for human psychology, the illusion of attachment, and really the inescapable mechanics of time.
Yeah, Narada's narration here is, it's a masterpiece of philosophical deconstruction. It operates like a mirror for the listener.
It does, and the story begins by establishing a psychological baseline that I think almost everyone can relate to, which is a state of profound, intoxicating distraction.
Oh, for sure.
Right. So we are introduced to King Puranjana, and he is completely captivated by his queen, Puranjani. She approaches him well-bathed, auspicious, highly attractive, and he completely loses his center of gravity.
And the text is really specific about the mechanism of this distraction, too. It doesn't just say, he likes her. It says his mind is entirely hijacked by her private, intimate words.
Hijacked is the perfect word for it.
Yeah, and he is described as being intoxicated by pride and just overwhelmed by ignorance. Specifically, the text uses the term tamas.
Right, tamas.
Now, a listener might hear this and think, is this just some ancient ascetic propaganda telling us that romantic love or sensory pleasure is inherently evil?
But what's fascinating here is how the text actually separates the action from the psychological consequence.
Okay, how so?
The issue isn't merely the existence of pleasure. The real issue is the oblivion that it creates.
Ah, right.
So the text describes him lying on this magnificent, highly valuable bed, using the queen's arm as his pillow. And in this state of just supreme sensory comfort, a massive cognitive distortion occurs.
He loses the plot.
Exactly. He genuinely begins to believe that this localized physical pleasure is the ultimate goal of existence.
Yeah.
Because of this, Thomas, this heavy, lethargic state of consciousness, he entirely forgets his true self and he forgets the supreme.
I mean, it is the ultimate form of tunnel vision. The physical comfort literally pulls his consciousness away from any broader perspective.
Yes.
And the cost of this tunnel vision is terrifying, because the text states that since he is so completely distracted by the day and the night, half of his entire lifespan simply vanishes.
Just gone.
Gone. Yet to him, it feels like it passed in, quote, half a moment. I mean, it's like time blindness, right? It's like the doom scrolling or binge watching we do today, but on a macro lifetime scale.
Kidding.
It makes you wonder, are we all just lying on our own metaphorical, valuable beds, letting our lives slip away in half a moment just because we're distracted by comforts?
We see this cognitive blind spot all the time. I mean, when human consciousness is utterly absorbed in sensory input, the internal clock just stops registering the macro reality.
It just shuts down.
Right. You lose years to a comfortable routine, and when you finally look up, you feel this profound sense of temporal whiplash.
Temporal whiplash. Wow. That's exactly it. But, you know, Puranjana doesn't just stay in that valuable bed forever.
No, he doesn't.
He transitions from this passive comfort to active expansion. And this requires a shift in how we understand the allegory. Because he is the king of a place called Pancala.
Right.
And in Vedic philosophy, a city like Pancala, which is often described with 5 gates, it represents the physical body and its 5 senses interacting with the material world.
Exactly. And through those 5 senses, with his queen, he begins to build this staggering material empire. I mean, the numbers provided by Narada are massive.
Yeah, they're wild.
Puranjana begets exactly 1,100 sons and 110 daughters.
Just a massive family.
And the text specifically notes that these daughters possess excellent character and magnanimity, which basically serves to increase their parents' worldly fame.
Of course.
And then he meticulously arranges suitable marriages for all of them.
Right, and looking at the math here, it accelerates so rapidly because each of those 1,100 sons goes on to have 100 sons of their own.
It's exponential.
Yeah. That is an empire of 110,000 grandsons. And in allegorical texts, numbers of this scale are never an accident, you know?
Never.
So what is Narada illustrating by giving Puranjana such a massive, sprawling dynasty across Pancala?
Well, it illustrates the mechanics of mamatva.
Matva.
Yeah, it's a Sanskrit term that basically translates to a deep-rooted sense of mindness.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When a person anchors their identity in the material world, that identity demands constant expansion. You know, you project your ego into your children, your wealth, your property.
It all becomes mine.
Right. Puranjana becomes utterly bound by this web of mindness to his home, his treasury, and these endless descendants.
And the irony that the text points out is really biting, because these descendants, who he loves so much, they are described fundamentally as the consumers of his wealth.
Yeah.
They are the ones who will take his inheritance, which leads to a massive structural problem for the king. Because the larger your empire of attachments, the more resources it takes to prevent it all from collapsing.
Exactly. And this raises a really important question for the listener. What are you willing to compromise to sustain the empire you've built?
That's a tough question.
It is. Because for Puranjana, the answer is his underlying morality. To maintain this sprawling network and fulfill his unending desires, he actually turns to ghastly animal sacrifices.
Right, and I want to push back on the literal interpretation here just a bit, because obviously most modern people listening aren't out there performing animal sacrifices to maintain their lifestyle.
Sure, yeah.
The text says he does this to appease demigods, ancestors, and even Buddha Patin, which are basically ghostly spirits. And then Narada looks directly at his listener and adds this chilling caveat. He says Puranjana does this just like you.
Yeah, that part always gets me.
Right. So how do we translate this violent maintenance into our current reality without just relying on the cliche of, calling it hustle culture?
Well, if we look at the underlying physics of what Puranjana is doing, he is appeasing hierarchical forces to guarantee his material security.
Okay, break that down.
So, demigods represent the natural forces of weather and agriculture. ancestors represent social lineage. And Buddhapatan, those ghosts, they represent darker, more desperate avenues for material gain.
I see.
So when Narada says, just like you, he is pointing out that whenever we build a life that requires more resources than we naturally have, we inevitably begin to sacrifice living things to sustain it.
Wow.
We sacrifice our own vitality. We exploit the labor of others. We compromise our ethical baseline. We are basically feeding the ghosts of our own desires just to keep the treasury full.
That is, wow, the very act of expanding outward leaves the center incredibly vulnerable.
Yes, it does.
And while Puranjana is completely consumed by managing his hundreds of thousands of grandsons and performing these desperate sacrifices, a massive threat arrives at the borders of Pancala.
The one force in the universe that simply cannot be bargained with.
Time.
Time. A character named Shandavega appears, which translates to swift force. He's the king of the Gandharvas, and he arrives with a highly specialized, absolutely terrifying army.
And anyone familiar with ancient lunar calendars will instantly spot the allegory here. Because Chandavega commands 360 male Gandharvas and 360 female Gandharvas.
Right.
And they alternate in color black and white. Here's where it gets really interesting, because these 720 soldiers perfectly represent the 360 days and 360 nights of a year.
The white light of day and the black darkness of night.
Exactly. And they begin to continuously, methodically plunder Puranjana's city of desires.
They are just dismantling his material empire second by second, day by day. Now, the city of Pancala does have a defense system, right?
Right.
There's a lone superintendent, a deeply powerful figure named Prajagra.
And this detail always strikes me as so counterintuitive. Because Puranjana has an empire of over 100,000 family members, boundless wealth, massive influence.
Yeah.
Yet when the city is attacked by the days and nights, Prajagra is fighting an entirely solitary battle. Why is the defense of this massive life reduced to just one single entity?
Because Prajaga represents the vital life force.
Oh, like the immune system.
Exactly. The biological immunity and sheer physiological resilience of the body. You can have all the wealth and social connections in the world, but your bank account cannot metabolize disease for you.
Right. Your family can't sleep for you.
Exactly. Your vital energy fights a completely isolated battle against the cellular wear and tear brought on by the passing days and nights.
And Prajaga fights this unequal battle against all 720 Gandharvas simultaneously. And he actually holds them off for a maximum of 100 years.
A full century.
Yeah, but as this century-long siege drags on, the superintendent naturally begins to weaken. I mean, the days and nights are simply too relentless.
They are. And seeing his most intimate defender failing, Puranjana's reaction is incredibly telling here.
He freaks out.
He
Right.
experiences intense anxiety. He sees the walls crumbling, but instead of changing his trajectory or preparing for the inevitable, he remains completely subjugated by his attachments.
He just ignores it.
Totally. He stays entirely focused on enjoying sense gratification in Pancala, obsessively collecting his tributes, and living in complete denial of the actual existential threat.
It is such a profound psychological observation
Yeah.
because anxiety about aging rarely translates into actual spiritual preparation.
No, almost never.
It usually just causes us to double down on our material distractions to numb the fear. But, the mechanical breakdown of the city by these soldiers, it's just the softening up process.
Yeah, it gets worse.
It sets the stage for the true psychological dread that follows.
It does. The endless assault of days and nights eventually opens the door for a new, incredibly tragic character. Enter Kalakanya.
Right, Kalakanya,
Yeah.
which translates literally as the daughter of time. And her narrative arc is surprisingly poignant for an allegorical villain.
It really is.
She is described as wandering the three worlds from the high planetary systems of Brahmaloka all the way down to Earth, desperately looking for a husband.
She just wants a partner. She wants to be embraced, but absolutely no one will accept her.
No one wants time.
Right. And because of this universal cosmic rejection, she becomes famous under a very specific name, Durbuga, which translates to the unfortunate one.
The text does mention one single historical exception, though. A king named Puru actually accepted her and received a boon for it.
True.
But outside of that solitary anomaly, every living entity in the universe runs away from her. And in her profound desperation and lust, she approaches the narrator of this very story, the sage Narada, and asks him to marry her.
And Narada, being firmly situated in spiritual realization and a strict vow of celibacy, He rejects her proposal.
Right.
But Kalakanya does not take this well at all.
No, she doesn't.
The accumulated frustration of being universally despised just boils over, and she levels an unbearable curse on Narada. She dictates that because he refused her, he will never be able to stay in one place. He is doomed to wander the universe continuously.
Okay, I have to stop you there. Because at first glance, cursing a traveling sage to wander seems almost redundant, doesn't it?
It does seem that way.
Like, isn't constant movement the very definition of a wandering mystic? Why is this her ultimate weapon of revenge?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the metaphor of Kalakanya representing old age is staggering here.
Okay.
Think about it. Old age wanders the universe looking for someone to embrace her gracefully. But no one in the material world wants to welcome old age. We view her as a tragedy.
Right. We fight it constantly.
Exactly. So the curse she places on Narada is born from the bitter psychology of the rejected. She's effectively saying, because you refuse to settle down with me, you will be denied the comfort of settling down anywhere, ever.
Wow.
It is the literal projection of her own eternal displacement onto him.
It's a fascinating insight into the bitterness of aging in a world that just completely worships youth.
Absolutely.
But since Narada refuses her, he actually gives her some advice on where she might find someone who will appreciate her unique skill set.
Yes. Taking his advice, Kalakanya approaches a hero named Bhaya, who is the king of the Yavanas. And the name Bhaya translates literally to fear.
Fear in old age. I mean, the pairing makes terrifying sense.
It's perfect.
And her pitch to him is essentially this massive intellectual guilt trip. She argues her case using scripture, telling Fear that rejecting a woman's proposal is lamentable, and that the true duty of a heroic man is to show compassion to the distressed.
And hearing this scriptural manipulation, Bhaya, the king of fear, he simply smiles.
Because he knows something she doesn't.
Right. He already has a secret cosmic plan in motion. He acknowledges that the world rejects her as inauspicious. But he reveals that through his mystic meditation, he had already appointed her to be his partner.
He was waiting for her.
He was expecting her all along.
And he tells her she possesses a very specific quality. He calls it unmanifest movement, meaning she sneaks up on people invisibly.
Yes.
You don't see old age arriving on a Tuesday at 4 p.m., right? It happens entirely unmanifested behind the scenes until suddenly it is just there.
Exactly. So Bhaya offers her a place in his command structure so she can enjoy this karma-created world. He officially adopts Kalakanya as his sister. And then, the king of fear introduces his brother.
Right, and his brother's name is Prajvara, which translates to fever representing extreme illness or the physical burning out of the body.
And Bhaya makes a really chilling declaration here. He announces that together, the three of them, fear, fever, and old age, will form an ultimate, invincible alliance.
The worst team ever.
Truly. They will wander the world unmanifest, acting as a terrible strike force that brings absolute destruction to the people.
So what does this all mean? Because you can see the strategic brilliance of this text. It shows us the precise sequence of human collapse.
Yes, step by step.
First, King Puranjana spends half his life in the oblivion of sensory comfort. Then he spends the other half desperately committing ethical atrocities to maintain his massive web of mindness, his thousands of grandsons, and his treasury. All the while, the 720 days and nights are silently breaking down Prajagara, his solitary immune system. And when that vital force is sufficiently weakened, boom, this elite strike force breaches the walls.
Exactly. The physical breakdown invites the psychological collapse. Old age, fever, and fear, they do not operate independently.
They work together.
They do. Old age weakens the structure, fever attacks the remaining vitality, and fear paralyzes the consciousness. Together, they completely dismantle the material empire that King Puranjana sacrificed so much of his morality to build.
So connecting this back to the listener, we aren't ancient kings ruling over Panchala.
No, we aren't.
Sure.
But the genius of the Śrīmad Bhagavatam is that it scales perfectly from the cosmic to the deeply personal.
Right.
This deep dive isn't a historical recounting. It is an urgent, real-time diagnosis. We are King Puranjana.
Wow, yeah.
Every time we let our consciousness get hijacked by temporary, intoxicating comforts, we are lying on that valuable bed, letting half our lifespan vanish in what feels like half a moment.
And we build our own little empires of mind, don't we? Our careers, our status, our endless accumulation of things that fundamentally just consume our time and resources.
Yeah.
And we desperately feed the ghosts of our desires just to keep it all afloat.
All the while, we ignore the 720 soldiers alternating black and white, constantly wearing down our internal defenses.
Yeah.
We live in a state of profound denial, that fear, fever, and old age are forming a quiet, unmanifest alliance right outside our gates.
It's a harsh reality check.
It is. The text demands that we look at our own mamadva, our own attachments, and realize how fragile they truly are against the mechanics of time.
It forces a really heavy realization. The days and nights are alternating right now, taking their tribute from our vital energy while you listen to this very conversation.
Second by second.
So I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day. If our internal defender is inevitably fighting a losing battle against time, and if that terrible, unmanifest army of fear, fever, and old age is always marching toward us to dismantle everything we call mine, what is the one thing in your life that time cannot plunder? If everything in the City of Desires is temporary, what is the invisible treasure you should be building right now before the gun harvest break through the gates?